Hi everyone, welcome to Hangin at the Hangar Bar. This is Candice. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Many of you may know, if you've listened to us before, not only a podcast hostess, but I am also a travel advisor specializing in Disney destination vacations, cruises, and all-inclusive resorts. I got my start in the travel industry a little over 13 years ago because of my lifelong love of all things Disney, whether it's the parks, the cruise line, all of that, the resorts, and the overall magic that comes with visiting Disney destinations. In this episode of the podcast, I will be sharing tips, tricks, and insider knowledge to help you plan the ultimate vacation. And today, we're diving into the wonderful world of Walt Disney World resorts. During this episode, I'll be talking about the different levels of Disney resorts, from value to deluxe options and everything in between. I'll also be covering the pros and cons of staying on property versus off property so that you can make the best decision based on your needs and your budget.
Hey, welcome to Hangin' at the Hangar Bar. I'm Scott.
And I'm Candice. We're here to chat all things Disney as child-free Disney adults. Stories, snacks, and a little magic along the way.
Grab a drink and get comfy and come hang out with us.
So, if you have never been to the Walt Disney World Resort and you're planning on going, prepare yourself because the resort property itself is absolutely enormous. We are talking about an entire resort complex where once you drive under the archways, the street signs change color. It's just a whole world in and of itself, which is exactly what Walt was looking for, and they've nailed it as far as I'm concerned. When you get to the resort complex, you are looking at 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, unlimited shopping and dining experiences, and one of the best ways, in my opinion, to really make your vacation full as possible of that Disney magic is to stay on property. Staying on property, you have over 25 resort hotels, each with a different theme. Some are a little more in your face than others, and we're going to talk about that, but you never have to leave the magic. And when I say leave the magic, I'm talking about service levels, I'm talking about cleanliness of property, I'm talking about just overall feeling that you get when you are on Disney property. So let's go ahead and talk about why it's important to stay on property, and then we will dive into the different levels of Disney resorts, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it's like to stay off property. Some of the big things, like I mentioned, there's the immersive experience of staying in the middle of the magic the whole time, having hotels and resorts themed out to pretty much anything you can think in the Disney realm. You're also very close to the parks and other amenities. You also have access to free transportation, and that can be boat, bus, Skyliner, and then there's also things like the minivan service, which it's run through the Lyft app, and it's basically Disney's answer to Lyft. So cast members drive the minivans. They play amazing music that changes as you move through the property. It's an amazing experience. And yes, it's pricey. It's probably going to be about twice what you would pay for normal Uber or Lyft. So if you're feeling a little bit extravagant, you might want to go down that path. I will say, as far as capacity, the minivans can hold up to 5 passengers and 1 car seat. They are equipped with car seats, so you don't need to worry about that. But if you have a larger group that is traveling, you'll want to order multiples, and again, that can add up. But I mean, your money is your money to do with what you wish. Another benefit of staying on property in a Disney resort hotel is early theme park access. And if you are staying in a deluxe property, which again, we're going to talk about all of that, you do get some extra magic hours, or what used to be called extra magic hours, in the evening, where select parks on select evenings will stay open a couple extra hours for deluxe resort guests. And yes, the cast members will check. They scan your Magic Band, they scan your My Disney Experience app to confirm that you are staying in one of those qualifying resorts. There's also a lot of convenience in staying close to the parks. For an example, we'll just use the Beach Club. The edge of Beach Club property is literally 123 steps from the International Gateway of Epcot. So if you're staying at the Beach Club, you need to go back from Epcot because you've had a little bit too much fun drinking and eating around the world. Got to go back for a nap. It's 123 steps. You don't have to worry about getting on a bus. You don't have to worry about getting on a boat, although you can. And it's a lot more convenient, in my opinion, rather than having to schedule a Lyft or an Uber or rideshare, waiting for it and going through all of that. But again, we'll talk about that as we go. We are going to now discuss the different resort levels of the resort hotels, starting at the Fort Wilderness camping category of resort hotel. Basically, all this is it is Fort Wilderness campsites only. The cabins over at Fort Wilderness are actually considered villa level, and we'll talk about all of that. But this category is only the campsites. The next category that we are going to speak about is the value resorts. And these are the most affordable hotels as far as Disney resorts go. There's a lot of fun theming, and it is pretty in your face. I mean, like we're talking about like some of the all-star resorts with the giant icons and things like that. And it's fun, but it's very loud. It's not as dignified as some of the others, I guess you could say. Not as bougie. There are some basic amenities as well. For dining, you are going to need to find a food court. And I will tell you that some of these resorts are pretty large. So if you're looking, work with a travel advisor to get the room that you want, but you will probably want to be in a preferred room, which is going to be closer to some of those amenities and the food court and the main lobby. So just keep that in mind. Transportation at the value resorts can be a little bit limited and a little bit longer of a wait than some of the other ones, just because they are located further away from the parks than some of the other hotels. And you're limited as far as like bus transportation is pretty much the whole gamut of what you're going to experience with Disney transportation. I will say that the buses that go to these resorts do get very crowded because they all go from stop to stop. It's not All Star Music has a bus, All Star Sports has a bus, All Star Movies has a bus. No. Those three resorts are on one bus loop. So the buses do get very full. I will say with Pop Century and Art of Animation, which are also your two other value level resorts, they do share a Skyliner station, which is amazing. I will tell you, though, that if there's any sort of inclement weather, be it lightning, too much wind, whatever the case may be, that Skyliner is not going to be an option, and you will have to bus from place to place to where you're going. So keep that in mind. I have actually stayed at the All-Star Sports Resort. Actually, when I went to Walt Disney World for my first time ever, I stayed at the All-Star Sports Resort. It was fine for what it was. It was a place to put our heads, and really that was all we were looking for and all we needed. I was with my brother and his family, and we had a 6-year-old and 18-month babies with us. So as far as room capacity goes, Florida Fire Code states that there are about 4 adults that can sleep in a room. So I had my nephew in a room with me, and then my brother and his wife had the twins in their room. So it was fine. But again, it was a place to sleep, and that's really all we needed, and that's all we were looking for. So it worked out very well. It was clean, it was comfortable, it was nice, all of those things. And it was budget friendly. Okay, moving on to our moderate resorts. Those moderate resorts are Caribbean Beach, Coronado Springs, and the Port Orleans resorts, which are Riverside and French Quarter. These moderate resorts offer a balance between price and amenities, lots of times with a more relaxed atmosphere. Like, it's not going to be so in your face. It's still going to be comfortable, and you're still going to have great theming throughout, but it's not going to be so flashy, I guess would be the best word I can think of to describe that. Some of the pros of a moderate resort would be larger room, themed pools, sit-down dining options, as well as quick service and food court options, and a moderate price. I will also say that the family suites at the Art of Animation Resort, which is considered a value level resort, are priced at a moderate resort level price. So as we work this web, I'm telling you, it doesn't necessarily need to be me that you work with. However, I would be more than honored to work with you and plan a Disney vacation. It doesn't cost you anything above the cost of your vacation. I'm just going to put my plug in right there. However, Disney vacation planning has become an art form. And I was speaking with a client a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned the fact that it seems like almost a person needs a PhD in Disneyology to be able to successfully plan a vacation, just because of all the changes and all the levels and all of the well butts that go along with it. So it's very intimidating to go on it alone, and just know that you don't have to, because there are people like myself who we keep up on our training, all of these things, and we can help. Anyway, back to our discussion. Going back to your moderate resorts, some of the cons are maybe not the most luxurious place, and they can be more expensive than the value resorts, but once again, you're going to get great Disney theming, great Disney service, that free transportation, which actually is a pretty big flex, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. We have stayed at both Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside. In Riverside, we did stay in one of the royal guest rooms, which was very fancy. Not as fancy as some of the other places, but for theming and stuff, it was just really cute and a good experience. And boat transportation to Disney Springs was nice to have. As far as the parks go, it was strictly bus transportation, but again, it was fine for what it was. All right, so we are now moving over to the Deluxe Resorts, which are, as the name would imply, the most expensive resorts as far as standard hotel rooms. These are premium experiences with a focus on comfort, luxury, and convenience. We're talking about the Grand Floridian, Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, the Contemporary Resort, and the Yacht and Beach Club. So we've got luxurious amenities, prime location, often walking distance to the parks. As I mentioned, Beach Club earlier. You've also got Contemporary, which is a 5-minute walk to the Magic Kingdom. Great dining, both sit down, quick service, and yeah, the Contemporary has Chef Mickey's in it, so there's that as far as character dining. Polynesian has Ohana, which has a breakfast that is a character dining experience, but then also their dinner is amazing, and that's family style dining. The one thing I will say about the deluxe resorts is the high price, and they can be quite crowded during peak times. So I was fortunate enough to be able to stay at the Contemporary Resort when I went to Disney's Quality Service Institute, or Disney Institute's Quality Service Workshop several years ago, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. My room actually faced Bay Lake, so I got to witness on a nice nightly basis the electric water pageant, which I had forgotten that even existed, and then I heard the music for it, and I was trying to go to sleep and had my curtains drawn and everything, and this loud music started playing, and I'm like, what is that? So it was amazing, and from that night on, I didn't go to sleep until I saw the water pageant. So yeah, but it was awesome. And that was before they did the whole retheme of the Incredibles rooms. So now all of the rooms at the Contemporary have an Incredibles theme to them. And it's just a nice place to stay. Again, it's 5 minutes walk to Magic Kingdom. There's great restaurants on the site like California Grill and Steakhouse 71, which is rapidly becoming one of my favorite restaurants on property. And it's just a really good experience. You can also walk from the Polynesian or the Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom. They have completed the walking track for both of those. And there's just a lot of great amenities in each one as far as pools and spas and fitness centers and all kinds of good things. It does come with a price tag though. And then the next category that we're going to be talking about is the Disney Vacation Club villas. And these properties offer a home-like accommodation, more like an apartment sort of situation, for larger families or longer stays. Also in the resort merchandise shop, you will have additional food purchase opportunities as far as things that you can take back to your room and make, because most of the rooms, except for the studios, they have a kitchenette, but starting at the 1 bedroom level, they do have full kitchens with refrigerator, freezers, coffee makers, dishwashers, everything's included. So cooking on site is definitely an option. Some of the example resorts of this particular level are Saratoga Springs, Animal Kingdom Villas, Grand Floridian Villas, Bay Lake Tower at the Contemporary, Old Key West, which was actually the first DVC resort. Trivia tip for you. And some of the pros are spacious kitchen facilities for longer stays, like I was saying, and flexible booking with your DVC membership. However, you do not have to be a DVC member to book into a DVC property. As long as there is availability and rooms are open, you can book into them, and you don't need to commit yourself to a Disney Vacation Club membership or anything like that. So let's talk a little bit about pros and cons of staying on property versus off property, because I know that's where a lot of people want to talk about it. Like, is it really worth the extra money and the extra lot of money to stay on Disney property? Some of the pros, like I mentioned, you have the transportation, which will get you from anywhere you need to go to anywhere else on property for free. You do kind of have to watch their schedule. You have to watch the weather for things like the boats, the Skyliner, all of that. There's always going to be a Disney bus. It's always going to have the air conditioning on, and the cold plastic seats are always going to feel real nice after a hot day in the parks. But you're always going to be able to get from place to place. Now, with that said, I will say that you need to pay attention with how you arrive at a park, because if you take a boat, say, for instance, from your resort to the International Gateway of Epcot, you cannot go to the front of Epcot at the end of the day and catch a bus back to that resort. It only works on the loop how you got there, if that makes sense. Another pro to staying on property is your Magic Band. So it will open your resort door. It can hold your dining plan credits, which is another benefit of staying on property, is you can utilize the Disney dining plan and the quick service dining plan, which we've talked about ad nauseum on the podcast, I believe. So you'll have your credits there, you'll have your room tickets there, or your room key there, your park tickets, access to PhotoPass, all of these other things are linked to that Magic Band. You can also link a credit or debit card to that Magic Band. You do establish a PIN so that somebody can't just come along and somehow scan the code on your Magic Band and pay for hundreds of dollars of merchandise that you didn't purchase. No, you have to have your PIN, and you can put it in and make your purchases, and it's fine. Again, extra magic hours, as I was stating earlier, you do have early or late access exclusively for on-property guests. Typically, the morning hours are a half an hour, so it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. However, if you are able to get into the parks and utilize your time, if you are an attraction to attraction to attraction person, that can make a difference in your day. Again, the deluxe level resort guests are going to be able to take advantage of the extra evening hours, which typically happen a couple times a week at some of the select parks, and it's typically from close until 11 or 12. And then, of course, you have the immersive Disney experience. So you get to be a part of the magic 24/7. And that includes interacting with the wonderful, wonderful cast members who I will say every day of my life, they are the magic. And their job is to make sure that you are comfortable and have the most magical stay possible. Some of the cons, and there are cons to staying on property, is the cost. So some of these deluxe resorts and the DVC resorts, especially for the 3-bedroom grand villas, can get very, very expensive very quickly. I was actually working on a quote for a potential client earlier this week who is looking to go to Walt Disney World in December of this year and is taking a family of 9. So the only thing available, the dates they wanted to go, was a 3-bedroom grand villa, and it was pricing out at about $3,000 a night. Now, granted, for 9 people, when you break that down person to person, it's not that bad, but when you want to stay for a week and add park tickets and add a dining plan and all of these other things, that adds up very, very quickly. And by the time I was done adding all of the elements together for the vacation, we were easily looking at almost $40,000 for a trip. So the cost is important, and I understand that. So you have to choose your budget. And when I am speaking to clients to try to put together their first set of quotes, I always ask for a budget range. So, but yeah, you have to weigh out whether it's important to you to stay on property or if you would rather go to a good neighbor hotel, which we will talk about when we're talking about staying off property. So there's also kind of a limited variety as far as food and recreation at your resort, depending on your budget. Some of the value resorts, as I think I mentioned, they do have somewhat limited amenities and features and transportation and that kind of thing. But again, if it's a choice between that and dealing with those limited options and not staying on property, I would go with the limited options. But that's just me. That's just me. One option that I did want to mention when we're going into staying off property is the Good Neighbor hotels. These hotels are located anywhere from 2 to 14 miles outside the resort property. They are called Good Neighbor hotels specifically by Disney, and that's not just a term that's thrown around loosely. They are actually, quote unquote, certified as a Good Neighbor hotel because they are expected to meet Disney standards for service, excellence, value, convenience, and quality to every guest. Many of the Good Neighbor hotels do offer free breakfast as well as shuttles to the Disney theme parks, although it may not be the every 20 minutes a shuttle for one of the Good Neighbor hotels is going to show up at all of the parks to get you back. You do kind of have to watch their timetable a little more closely than you do the Disney timetable. And prices can range anywhere from the value level that we're talking about to a little bit under that to deluxe to more than that. So it really depends on what you want to do. These Good Neighbor hotels are not going to have the level of theming that the Disney resort hotels have. You're also not going to get to take advantage of things like the dining plan and things like that. They're just very, very much more a hotel experience versus the Disney resort experience. So staying off property, let's talk about some of the pros of this. They can be much cheaper than Disney resort hotels. A lot of them do have discounts, especially if you have a loyalty program like Hilton Points or something like that. There is a variety of options to choose from, including Hilton, Marriott, those kind of places. And they all offer different experiences and amenities. And again, we're talking more hotel-y themed and not so much Disney themed because, of course, they're not Disney hotels. You may be a little bit more relaxed staying at these off-property hotels just because they're not going to be as busy and you don't have the constant Disney guest feeling. Like you're not in the same run of people that's going on the same buses all the time and all the same Skyliner cars all the time and just that whole community that is part of being in the resort hotels with Disney all the time. Some of the cons, again, we're talking transportation. You need to rely on a car rental, third-party shuttle, rideshare, taxis, all of this kind of stuff, which can add additional expense. And a lot of times it's not little expense. You can miss out on park access during special hours. And then there's no Disney magic outside of the parks and outside of the resort. So if that's important to you, definitely put that into consideration when you're planning your trip. So, which resort is right for you? Let's talk about this. And I think we kind of have during this discussion. Which resort is right for you? So, if you're on a tight budget, but you want to stay in the middle of the magic, definitely Value Resorts or the Fort Wilderness Camping resorts, if that's an option for you and you want to camp. Again, I've stayed in an all-star resort. There was nothing wrong with it. It was a place to stay. It was a place to sleep. It was clean. Everything worked. I mean, as far as like running water, there were no maintenance issues. The cast was super friendly. Everything was fine. It was a place to stay, and that's about it. With the travel party that I was with during that time, it fit. For those who want a bit more comfort and better dining options, moderate resort like Port Orleans or Coronado Springs offer a good mix of amenities and price. So that's another option. And keep in mind, there are family suites available over at Art of Animation that are priced in the moderate category, but it does offer a one-bedroom setup with a living space and a small kitchenette for bigger families or just a different way to stay. Then, if budget isn't an issue and you want to be immersed in luxury, we've got your Deluxe Resorts, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, that offer an unparalleled experience, especially with their proximity to the parks. Again, walking distance. That's an amazing benefit. And then if you are going to plan on staying for longer or you have a larger family group staying, the Disney Vacation Club villas or suites are perfect for families or groups that need more space and prefer home-like amenities, and they do feel very much like apartments. I did want to touch on places like the Swan, Dolphin, and Swan Reserve, which do fall into the deluxe category along with Wilderness Lodge. I don't think we mentioned that one. Boardwalk Inn and Villas. I think those are the only two that we forgot, but I'm mentioning them now. But anyway, the Swan and Dolphin and Swan Reserve are not actually owned by Disney. So some of the amenities that you may have access to or not have access to may differ a little bit. And when you're planning your trip, it is important to keep those things in mind so you don't get disappointed. Florida Fire Code does state that for regular rooms, and we're not talking about the villas and suites here, we're talking about the regular hotel rooms. Florida Fire Code states that 4 adults can sleep in these rooms. Some, like over at the Grand Floridian, Contemporary, Polynesian, Yacht and Beach Club, Boardwalk, Port Orleans Riverside, and Caribbean Beach, do have rooms that will allow up to 5 people. But these room limitations are non-negotiable. It's fire code, and you just have to work around it. So if you have more than 4 people traveling, you're going to need multiple rooms. End of discussion. Most of the even Good Neighbor hotel rooms are going to be in that same scape because it is a fire code. It's not a Disney rule, it is a civic rule. So as we've talked through the resort levels, again, we've got our Fort Wilderness Camp category, we've got value resorts, we've got moderate resorts, we've got DVC Villa resorts, and we've got Deluxe Resort. You've got a gamut of different things to choose from when you are planning your next Disney World vacation. Each one is a little bit different from the others in terms of theming, amenities offered, and what your experience is going to be. So you kind of have to do some research and determine what's going to be best for you and your family group. In my opinion, it is worth the extra money to stay on property because of the convenience. Again, the included transportation, the just overall atmosphere and quote unquote magic that you get when you're on property. It makes a big difference to me. That's why I choose to stay on property. I've stayed off property just recently and it was fine, but it wasn't a Disney resort. and I could tell the difference. So think about your priorities when you go to plan a trip. Cost, convenience, and the experience that you're looking at. And just keep in mind that at the end of the day, whichever you choose, a Disney World vacation is about the memories you'll make with your friends and family, not the hotel that you stay in, not the amount of money that you pay for it. It's all about those memories and making magic, and that those magical memories that last a lifetime. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to us on social media. You can drop us a message and let me know that you are interested in potentially planning a trip or have questions about planning a trip. More than happy to help. And just interact with us on social media anyway. We love hearing from you. We love discussing all things Disney with you. And as Scott says, there's always a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and we'll see you real soon.